All right, today we're going to break down a single Fox News report that covered the nationwide anti-ICE protests. We're going to unpack how this one story was constructed piece by piece, from the way it was framed right at the top to the final political takeaway. We're only using what was in their broadcast, so let's dive right in. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at how the protests were initially presented. Then we'll zoom right into a specific incident in Minneapolis. After that, we'll explore the political clash that was highlighted, unpack the defense of ICE that was offered, and then wrap it all up with the bigger picture narrative they built. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, how these nationwide protests were reported. So, right out of the gate, the report hits you with a Fox News alert. This immediately sets the tone, framing the story as a widespread crisis. They mention protests erupting in places like LA and Austin, but they very quickly honed in on Minneapolis as the main focus. And to really give a sense of the scale, the report cited Minneapolis police figures stating that over 1,000 protesters showed up in that city alone. The report then got into the specifics of the aftermath: 29 arrests, an officer injured. But check out that last point. By making it a point to say the march followed the exact same route as the 2020 George Floyd riots, the report creates a very specific, very powerful connection in your mind. Okay, Section 2. This is where the report really zeroes in on what it presented as the catalyst for the conflict. At the heart of it was this key piece of evidence, a video from DHS. It seems to show a vehicle blocking the street, horn blaring, literally moments before an ICE agent shot and killed the driver. Now, you might be asking, why was this seen as such a threat? Well, to answer that, the report brought in a Border Patrol source. They explained that from an agent's perspective, being boxed in by a car is incredibly dangerous because it allows what they call agitators to swarm them in seconds. And then the report added another layer to this, arguing that this wasn't some random accident. An analyst was quoted claiming that the individual wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, they had apparently been following them all day. All right, Section 3. So from that incident on the street, the report makes a big pivot straight into the political arena. And the central political figure here was Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. The report featured this really potent accusation from her. She framed what ICE was doing not just as law enforcement, but as a fundamental threat to American democracy, saying they were literally disappearing citizens. This slide really lays out the point-counterpoint. The report presented Representative Omar's side. She claimed she was denied full access to an ICE facility. But then it immediately presented the DHS rebuttal, that her visit was improper, that it broke a 7-day notice rule, and they even claimed she was out there cheering on the protesters. Moving on to Section 4, now we're going to look at how the report actually built its case for the agency's actions. And the core defense, the main argument, really boiled down to this one direct quote from one of the hosts. It reframed the entire operation as a simple public safety mission. ICE was just trying to get rapists and murderers off the streets. And to back that claim up, to give it some weight, the host cited these very specific examples. They said ICE was going after an illegal immigrant who'd been convicted of sexually assaulting a child, and, separately, a Somali murderer. This was their evidence for who was at the center of these operations. Then, the report drew a direct line from political speech to physical danger. It made the claim that all this anti-ICE rhetoric, which they said was being fueled by politicians, had directly led to a 13% increase in assaults on ICE agents and their vehicles. Okay, our final section, the bigger picture. This is where the report zooms all the way out and tries to connect all these dots into one cohesive national narrative. So, according to the analysis in this report, how did we get to this point? Well, they pointed to a cocktail of 3 main ingredients. First, local sanctuary city policies in Minneapolis. Second, what they called inflammatory rhetoric from politicians like Governor Tim Walz and Representative Omar. And third, the big one, national border policies under President Joe Biden that they claim opened up the border. So what's the bottom line? Why does all this matter? The final analysis presented in the report framed it as a stark political warning that defending these kinds of anti-ICE actions is, plain and simple, a losing strategy for Democrats across the country. So when you step back, the key takeaway here isn't really about who was right or who was wrong. It's about pulling back the curtain and seeing the mechanics of how a news story gets built, how video, official sources, political soundbites, and host analysis all get woven together to create a very specific narrative. Which leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? When news and politics collide, what are the ingredients that truly shape the final story we all end up hearing?